Have you ever wondered if what you eat could influence the environment where cancer cells try to grow? For years, many people believed that cancer was driven almost entirely by genetics or simple bad luck. But researchers have gradually uncovered something far more fascinating. The human body is constantly creating conditions that can either support healthy cells or make life more difficult for abnormal ones. And one of the biggest influences on that environment may be something we encounter every single day: food. Now, this doesn't mean that any food can cure cancer. It doesn't mean there's a magic diet or a single ingredient capable of eliminating advanced disease. But evidence from nutrition science, metabolism research, and cancer biology suggests that dietary patterns can influence inflammation, blood sugar regulation, immune function, the gut microbiome, and even blood vessel formation. Factors that researchers believe may play important roles in colon cancer risk and overall health. And this is where the story becomes far more interesting than most headlines ever reveal. Scientists have spent decades studying why some populations around the world experience dramatically lower rates of colorectal cancer than others. Surprisingly, genetics explain only part of the difference. Lifestyle, especially nutrition, appears to have a powerful influence. Today, we're exploring what current research suggests about foods and habits that may help create an internal environment less favorable for colon cancer development while supporting the body's natural defense systems. Along the way, you'll discover why certain everyday foods consistently appear in scientific studies, why your gut bacteria may be one of the most overlooked players in long-term health, and why one simple change could have effects that extend far beyond your digestive system. Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs aren't about finding a miracle, they're about understanding how countless small biological processes work together over years and even decades. Colon cancer rarely develops overnight. In many cases, it begins with tiny changes inside the lining of the colon. Over time, some cells accumulate damage. Small growths, known as polyps, can develop. Most remain harmless, but some may gradually become more concerning if additional genetic and environmental changes occur. The remarkable thing is that this process often unfolds slowly. Researchers estimate it can take many years for certain precancerous polyps to develop into colorectal cancer. That long timeline presents an important opportunity. It means lifestyle factors may influence the biological environment throughout much of that journey. Yet many people assume the story starts only after a diagnosis. In reality, scientists have become increasingly interested in what happens long before disease appears. Evidence indicates that chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, excess visceral fat, poor dietary quality, physical inactivity, disrupted gut bacteria, and repeated damage to the intestinal lining may all contribute to increased risk over time. But researchers later discovered something surprising. These factors don't operate independently. Instead, they interact like members of a complicated orchestra. Your immune system communicates with your gut microbes. Your gut microbes influence inflammation. Inflammation affects blood vessels. Blood vessels influence oxygen and nutrient delivery. Your metabolism changes hormone levels. Those hormones affect cellular growth signals. Rather than one single cause, scientists now view health as the product of countless interconnected systems. And that realization has transformed nutritional research. One of the most intriguing discoveries involves a process called angiogenesis. Every healthy person depends on angiogenesis. The body constantly grows tiny new blood vessels to heal wounds, repair tissues, and maintain healthy organs. Without this process, healing would be impossible. However, researchers have also observed that abnormal tissues can sometimes take advantage of these same biological pathways. Scientists have spent years investigating how the body naturally regulates blood vessel growth and how nutrition may influence these normal regulatory systems. This area of research has attracted significant scientific interest because many plant foods contain naturally occurring compounds that interact with biological pathways involved in inflammation, oxidative stress, and vascular health. Importantly, these findings do not mean specific foods stop tumors from growing in people. Human biology is much more complex than laboratory experiments. But understanding these mechanisms provides valuable insight into why dietary patterns matter. And that's where nutrition begins to tell a remarkable story. Take tomatoes, for example. For decades, they were simply considered another healthy vegetable. Then, scientists identified lycopene, the pigment responsible for their deep red color. Research suggests lycopene functions as a powerful antioxidant. Scientists continue investigating whether diets rich in lycopene-containing foods are associated with better long-term health outcomes, including certain aspects of colorectal health. Interestingly, cooked tomatoes often provide lycopene in a form that's easier for the body to absorb than raw tomatoes. That means something as familiar as tomato sauce, when prepared with minimal added sugar and unhealthy fats, may deliver more available lycopene than many people realize. But tomatoes are only one piece of a much larger picture. Another fascinating area of research involves cruciferous vegetables: broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. At first glance, they seem ordinary. Yet inside these vegetables are natural compounds that researchers believe may support the body's detoxification systems. When these vegetables are chopped or chewed, they produce compounds such as sulforaphane. Scientists have spent years studying sulforaphane because laboratory research suggests it interacts with cellular defense mechanisms involved in oxidative stress and normal cellular maintenance. While researchers are still learning how these findings translate into long-term human health, population studies consistently associate higher vegetable intake with numerous health benefits. However, that's not the most interesting part. Many of these compounds don't work alone. Their effectiveness may depend partly on something living inside your body right now: your gut microbiome. Trillions of microorganisms inhabit the digestive tract. Collectively, they contain far more genes than the human genome itself. Rather than being passive passengers, these microbes actively participate in digestion, vitamin production, immune regulation, and communication with the brain. Over the last 2 decades, scientists have discovered that gut bacteria also produce molecules capable of influencing inflammation throughout the body. One molecule in particular has received tremendous attention. It's called butyrate. Most people have never heard of it, yet researchers believe it may be one of the most beneficial substances produced inside the colon. Butyrate isn't found in food directly. Instead, healthy bacteria create it by fermenting dietary fiber. That means every time you eat fiber-rich foods, you're not simply feeding yourself, you're feeding an entire ecosystem. And that ecosystem produces compounds that may help support the cells lining your colon. Evidence suggests butyrate may help maintain the intestinal barrier, support healthy immune responses, and promote normal cellular function within the colon. This helps explain why diets rich in fiber repeatedly appear in large observational studies associated with lower colorectal cancer risk. It's not just about fiber itself, it's about what fiber becomes. And this is where many modern diets fall short. Highly processed foods often contain plenty of calories, but relatively little fermentable fiber. As fiber intake decreases, beneficial bacteria may decline, while less favorable microbial communities can become more common. Researchers continue studying exactly how these microbial shifts influence long-term disease risk, but the connection has become one of the fastest growing areas of nutrition science. Yet the story becomes even more fascinating when scientists looked beyond vegetables. They began studying foods people have consumed for thousands of years: garlic, onions, mushrooms, green tea, berries. Each contains hundreds of naturally occurring plant compounds. Not one, hundreds. Many belong to a family known as polyphenols. These molecules help protect plants from environmental stress. When humans consume them, researchers have observed that they interact with numerous biological pathways related to oxidative balance and inflammation. Rather than acting like pharmaceutical drugs, these compounds appear to work gently across multiple systems simultaneously. Think of them less as powerful switches and more as tiny dimmer controls influencing many different biological processes. That subtlety may actually explain why dietary patterns consistently outperform individual superfoods. Healthy eating isn't about one magical ingredient. It's about thousands of beneficial compounds working together day after day, year after year. Researchers sometimes refer to this as food synergy. For example, berries provide fiber, vitamin C, anthocyanins, and dozens of additional phytochemicals. Leafy greens contribute folate, magnesium, nitrates, carotenoids, and other bioactive compounds. Beans deliver fiber, resistant starch, minerals, and plant protein. Nuts provide healthy fats, vitamin E, polyphenols, and important micronutrients. When these foods are combined within an overall balanced dietary pattern, scientists believe their collective effects may be greater than any individual nutrient alone. But researchers later uncovered another unexpected twist. The same meal can affect different people differently. Why? Because metabolism varies. Age matters, sleep matters, exercise matters, stress matters. Even the composition of your gut microbiome influences how nutrients are processed. This realization has shifted modern nutrition away from simplistic rules and toward understanding individual biology. Still, despite our differences, several themes appear again and again across decades of research. Diets emphasizing minimally processed foods, higher intakes of vegetables and fruits, whole grains instead of refined grains, legumes, healthy fats, regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy body weight, limiting processed meats, reducing excessive alcohol intake. These patterns repeatedly emerge in studies examining long-term health and colorectal cancer risk. And perhaps that's the most encouraging message of all. The science doesn't point toward expensive supplements or complicated detoxes. Instead, it repeatedly returns to everyday habits that are available to millions of people. Small decisions, repeated consistently, accumulating quietly over decades. But there's one major metabolic factor we haven't explored yet, and it may connect nearly everything we've discussed so far. It influences inflammation. It affects insulin. It changes hormone signaling. It shapes the gut microbiome, and evidence suggests it may play an important role in long-term colon health. Understanding this connection could completely change the way you think about nutrition, not just for preventing disease, but for supporting healthy aging overall. That metabolic factor is insulin. Most people think of insulin simply as the hormone that regulates blood sugar. While that's certainly one of its primary roles, scientists have learned that insulin is also deeply connected to growth signals throughout the body. After we eat, insulin helps move glucose from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used for energy. Under normal circumstances, this process is essential for life. The challenge begins when the body is exposed to chronically elevated insulin levels over many years. Research suggests that diets consistently high in refined carbohydrates, sugary beverages, and heavily processed foods, combined with physical inactivity and excess body fat, may contribute to insulin resistance in some individuals. When cells become less responsive to insulin, the pancreas often compensates by producing more of it. Researchers believe this state of persistently elevated insulin may influence several biological pathways associated with inflammation and cellular growth. It's one of the reasons scientists increasingly view metabolic health as being closely connected to healthy aging and long-term disease prevention. But that's only part of the picture. Scientists also study another molecule closely linked to insulin called insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. This signaling system plays an important role in normal growth, tissue repair, and development. Like many systems in biology, it's beneficial when properly regulated. The key is balance. Researchers continue investigating how nutrition, exercise, body composition, and overall lifestyle influence these signaling pathways throughout adulthood. Rather than focusing on eliminating any single food, the evidence increasingly points toward maintaining healthy metabolic function over the long term. And this is where one of the simplest lifestyle habits becomes surprisingly powerful: walking. It may not sound revolutionary, it doesn't require expensive equipment, it doesn't promise dramatic transformations overnight. Yet, study after study has found that regular physical activity is associated with improved metabolic health, healthier blood sugar regulation, better cardiovascular fitness, and reduced risk of several chronic diseases, including colorectal cancer. Even a brisk walk after meals may help the body use glucose more efficiently by allowing working muscles to absorb circulating sugar. It's a reminder that movement isn't merely about burning calories. It's about sending biochemical signals throughout the body. Those signals influence metabolism, inflammation, immune function, and even the composition of the gut microbiome. However, researchers later uncovered another fascinating connection. Exercise doesn't work in isolation. It appears to amplify many of the benefits of healthy nutrition. When people combine regular physical activity with diets rich in whole foods, the effects on metabolic markers are often greater than either strategy alone. This illustrates one of the most important principles in preventive medicine. Health isn't built by isolated habits. It's built by systems working together: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, social connection. Each strengthens the others. Speaking of sleep, scientists have become increasingly interested in what happens during the hours we're unconscious. While we sleep, the body performs an extraordinary amount of maintenance. Hormones are regulated, immune cells become active, damaged proteins are removed, memory is consolidated, tissues undergo repair. Poor sleep, on the other hand, has been associated with increased inflammation, impaired glucose regulation, altered appetite hormones, and reduced immune efficiency. Researchers continue studying exactly how sleep quality influences long-term disease risk, but the evidence consistently points toward sufficient, regular sleep as an important pillar of overall health. And then there's stress. Modern life often exposes us to persistent psychological stress that previous generations experienced far less frequently. Short-term stress is a normal part of life. It helps us respond to challenges. But when stress becomes chronic, the body may remain in a prolonged state of heightened alertness. Scientists have observed that long-term stress can influence behaviors such as food choices, physical activity, sleep quality, and alcohol consumption. It can also affect hormones involved in inflammation and metabolism. That doesn't mean stress directly causes cancer. The science is far more nuanced than that. Instead, researchers believe chronic stress may contribute indirectly by influencing multiple biological and behavioral pathways over time. This understanding has expanded the conversation about health beyond calories and nutrients. Mental well-being matters, relationships matter, purpose matters, community matters. Healthy aging is about much more than avoiding illness. It's about creating the conditions that allow the body and mind to function well for as long as possible. Yet one of the biggest misconceptions still persists. Many people search for the single perfect food, the one ingredient that will solve everything. The evidence doesn't support that approach. Scientists repeatedly find that overall dietary patterns matter far more than any individual food. Consider the Mediterranean-style eating pattern. Rather than focusing on restriction, it emphasizes vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, olive oil, herbs, fish, and moderate amounts of minimally processed foods. Decades of research have associated this pattern with numerous positive health outcomes, including cardiovascular health, cognitive health, and lower risk of several chronic diseases. Similarly, dietary patterns rich in plant foods consistently provide higher amounts of fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals while naturally reducing reliance on ultra-processed products. Notice what these approaches have in common. They aren't built around perfection. They're built around consistency. Researchers believe that repeated healthy choices accumulate over time. Just as years of unhealthy habits can gradually increase risk, years of healthier habits may support resilience. And this is where the conversation becomes hopeful. The human body is remarkably adaptable. Within days of improving dietary quality, researchers have observed favorable changes in blood sugar regulation and certain inflammatory markers in many people. Within weeks, physical fitness can begin improving. Over months, metabolic health may continue to strengthen. Over years, these changes accumulate into something much larger. Health span, not simply living longer, living better, maintaining mobility, protecting cognitive function, preserving independence, remaining active enough to enjoy family, hobbies, travel, and everyday life. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of asking, how do I avoid disease? A better question becomes, how do I create an internal environment that supports health? That question naturally leads back to everyday decisions. Choosing whole foods more often than processed alternatives, including colorful vegetables at most meals, eating enough fiber to nourish beneficial gut bacteria, staying physically active throughout the week, maintaining a healthy body weight where possible, prioritizing restorative sleep, managing stress in healthy ways, keeping up with recommended preventive health care and age-appropriate screening. That final point deserves special attention. Lifestyle plays an important role, but it doesn't replace medical care. One of the greatest successes in modern preventive medicine has been colorectal cancer screening. Because many colorectal cancers begin as polyps that develop slowly over years, screening can identify and remove certain precancerous growths before they become more serious. Research has consistently shown that recommended screening programs are associated with reduced colorectal cancer mortality. For adults, the appropriate type and timing of screening depends on factors such as age, family history, personal medical history, and overall risk profile. Discussing these factors with a qualified healthcare professional can help determine the most appropriate screening schedule. This combination of prevention and early detection represents one of the strongest tools currently available. Healthy habits support the body's normal biology. Screening helps identify problems before symptoms appear. Together, they offer complementary approaches grounded in decades of scientific research. Perhaps the most remarkable lesson from all this research is how interconnected the human body truly is. The food you eat influences your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome communicates with your immune system. Your immune system interacts with inflammation. Inflammation affects metabolic health. Metabolic health influences cellular signaling. Physical activity supports nearly every step along the way. No single habit determines your future. No meal defines your health. No birthday suddenly changes everything. Instead, your health reflects thousands of choices made over months, years, and decades. That's both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that meaningful change rarely arrives in dramatic moments. It grows quietly. One nutritious meal, one walk after dinner, one additional serving of vegetables, one earlier bedtime, one medical checkup, one decision repeated often enough to become part of everyday life. Scientists continue to uncover new insights about nutrition, metabolism, the microbiome, and healthy aging. There is still much to learn, and recommendations will continue to evolve as better evidence emerges. But one message has remained remarkably consistent. The habits that support heart health often support brain health. The habits that support metabolic health often support digestive health. The habits associated with longevity are rarely extreme. They're sustainable, balanced, grounded in evidence. Ultimately, the goal isn't to fear disease. It's to understand how the body works so we can make informed decisions that may support health for years to come. The decisions we make today may seem small. Preparing one balanced meal instead of reaching for ultra-processed convenience food, choosing to take the stairs, going for a walk with a friend, prioritizing sleep before another hour of scrolling, scheduling a recommended health screening instead of postponing it for another year. Individually, these choices may seem insignificant. Collectively, they help shape the environment in which every cell in the body lives. While no lifestyle can eliminate every risk, Decades of research suggest that consistent healthy habits may help support resilience, reduce the likelihood of many chronic conditions, and improve both lifespan and health span. The decisions we make today may seem small, but over years and decades, those choices can shape how we age, how we feel, and how long we remain healthy. That's why understanding the science matters.